way. But for now, I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt that this is an overzealous fan who's trying to get some late night payday for an alcohol fueled incident. But we'll find out when the video comes out.
Well, I just don't know how long it's going to be. Now, TMZ does have photos from the guy that is claiming he was attacked. I did see some photos of this guy's elbows pretty bruised and swollen up. So,
well, the police say there is no doubt that this guy did get jacked up in the fight because the security or whatever got involved. So he definitely got banged up. It's just a matter of who did the banging and what or what part didn't Manziel play in it, you know? And Bruce is right. To be totally fair, that has come out overnight that the fan involved in this has several incidents similar to this where he's gotten into altercations while he was under the influence of alcohol. So keep that in mind. I'm very much saying that this could be not Johnny Manziel's fault at all, but it could also tell a different story. So we'll just have to see. But I'm not going to go off the deep end about it. I do think the Browns, no matter what, are going to say what Dan Wismar and I said yesterday. Nothing good happens when you're out at 2:36 in the morning, and it's not the smartest place for people that have a high profile to be. I'm not saying you got to be a shut-in, but you be smart because that's, I'm just saying it didn't happen at 2:36 in the afternoon. It happened at 2:36 in the morning. But that is what it is.
Well, we've heard it for years, J-Rock. Nothing good comes after midnight.
We know it. You know it. It's the old expression.
Especially when you have a plane leaving for Atlanta the very next morning. I mean, that's kind of crazy. What's your thought on that, man?
Well, yeah, for sure. I mean, that's the part that the team is probably not happy about, even if Manziel was a saint during the actual incident, is, hey, man, and they're telling him what we're saying. Hey, guess what? If you're not out at 2:36 in the morning, they're talking about some other schmo that's out there in the middle of the night. They're not talking about you. So just learn your lesson and move on from it, And speaking of learning your lesson, let me segue you back, LG. I know you heard me playing a little don't give a damn for Michigan here as we came back in. Urban Meyer, he may not give a damn for Michigan, but he also doesn't care much for the things that we saw in last year's game. We saw a lot of different instances when it comes to unruly behavior, fighting, instances with the fans, all kinds of stuff. And he laid it out here this week that I'm cool. The game's going to be intense and hardcore and all of that. Go for it. But we're not going to be out here acting like a bunch of Bush League guys. We're not going to be out here doing a bunch of unacceptable behavior. And I'm glad he said there's going to be a no-tolerance policy in this game. And he promises that there will be punishment for anybody who gets into a fight.
Well, we saw it last year, J-Rock, when the melee started and people got out of control and some ejections happened. And, this is college football. Tempers flared. Nobody likes, that place up north. If you live in Ohio, and there's a lot of people that live up north in that place that don't like it. They just, unfortunately, ended up being born there. Urban Meyer does have to try to present a class act when he goes up north there. To play when they play the team from up north, it's going to be tough, J-Rock. You gotta remember that team up north. They're gonna taunt and harass some of these Ohio State guys. So this is the game where Urban Meyer's men are going to have to, mind their P's and Q's. It's hard to keep your mouth shut and not say anything back when somebody's talking bad about your mother out there on a football field or whatever other kind of things take place. And you know as well as I do, J-Rock Daddy, there's a lot of things that take place in the bottom of a pile that nobody's familiar with except for those guys on the bottom of the pile. So to get up and walk away from what's going to happen when we play that team up north, I don't know how Urban's going to control these guys, but he's got a big job ahead of him, man.
Well, for sure. But he had several things that he could point to. Look at the fact that last year you didn't have people that you wanted to have for the Big Ten championship game because you lost guys the week before who ended up serving a suspension. Same thing that you just brought up. If you are winning the football game, then what you just brought up becomes big because down the stretch, if Michigan feels that they can't win this game, hey, if we can get you to lose your cool, maybe you get suspended for the Big Ten title game, or maybe more. And that's what Urban's got to be reminding guys, is that we're in a position where there could not just be one more game plus a bowl game. We could have 2, 3, 4 more games remaining, depending on whatever and however and all of that. So, keep that in mind too. That's going to be very, very important, and that's part of why he's doing this. It's not, I think he's stressing this more because it's a game Ohio State is expected to win. What do they say? When you're the number one guy, you don't throw shots at the number two. You just ignore them and act like they're not there. When you're number two, you take every shot, every pot shot, every punch you can get at number one. Same thing here. When everybody's expecting you to lose and when your talent level doesn't match up, even in a rivalry game, when your coach is a lame duck and your athletic director is already out the door, what else do you have to do besides try to drag the game into the muck? Because Ohio State, their offense goes off to the races. We already know how easily they can put 50 points on the board like it's nothing. So how do you slow down a fast team? You drag them into the muck. You get them mad. You get them frustrated. You get them making mistakes. You get them tripping over their own 2 feet. You get a couple of their guys kicked out of the game, and then all of a sudden Ohio State finds themselves in a game they had no business being in. And that's what happened. So I think it's more important this week than in a more competitive, perhaps, environment, trying not to look past Michigan, but in a more competitive environment, because you've got more reasons to go out there, if you're Michigan, and try to drag this game into the mud.
And that's what I fully expect, J-Rock. I don't think that those guys are going to be very nice. It's a big game for both schools. It always is a big game. I mean, it's probably the best rivalry in sports anywhere anymore, because obviously the Browns haven't been much of a rivalry to the Pittsburgh Steelers, but as far as sports goes, this is probably the biggest rivalry in sports that exists. I can't think of one off the top of my head that is a bigger rivalry than Ohio State versus that team up north. I mean, like you said, they have nothing better to do but to try to drag these guys down onto their level.
That's
and
their
that's
bowl
an awful
game.
lot of adrenaline that Urban Meyer is going to try to control.
They may be able to qualify if they win this game, but forget, who cares about, like Dan said, playing in the Poulon Weed Eater Bowl or whatever. This is the Buckeye Bowl for the Wolverines. This is their bowl game right here. They can totally ruin everything that Ohio State's trying to do here, and that's why I say you never take for granted anything in a rivalry game, even when it looks like, well, we should be able to figure this out. I saw, as we said yesterday, they dropped that 20-point line on the game, which I think is high. I wouldn't mess with that as a gambler, but Ohio State should be looked at as being 3 touchdowns better. But Dan said it perfectly yesterday. They're going to end up having a game that it shouldn't be. It's going to end up being wow, because that's how rivalry games go. They're never as one-sided as they should be. They're always more competitive. Even the Browns and the Steelers, like when they were on that run, which they still are. We won the last one, but that big long Steelers run, most of them were competitive games that the Steelers just played better than the Browns down the stretch and ground them out in the second half. They weren't all blowouts, because it's traditionally tighter when you've got that rivalry than what it would be if the two teams were just from different sides of the planet.
Yeah, and this game's not going to be any different with the team up north against Ohio State. And, like you said, I mean, Urban Meyer's going to have his hands full. At least he gave early warning. He fired a warning shot over the team's head, so to speak. And I got to tell you, J-Rock, I don't envy Meyer this weekend, because he's got a tough job ahead of him, man. And as I said to Chuck, it's not going to be an easy task for the players on the Buckeyes football team and the entire coaching staff on the Buckeyes football team. People know what really takes place in those pile-ups on the field, man. But I mean, there's biting, spitting, scratching,
we know.
eye gouging.
It gets ugly down there, man.
Yeah, you definitely don't want to spend a lot of time on the bottom of the pile, man. But you don't want to be piled on either, and that's where that's where we're going to find out what this Ohio State Buckeyes football team is really made out of. Because if you can keep your composure through a game like this and come out on top and show that you're the classier act, that says a lot for Urban Meyer's football program. And we already saw over the last 2 seasons that Urban Meyer's not a guy that's going to put up with a lot of bunk from his guys. I mean, there's guys that have been suspended for staying out too late and partying at the bar. One little mishap, and that's reason to be suspended in an Urban Meyer football program. A lot of people thought it was overreacting due to the fact of where Aaron Hernandez ended up in prison with possible murder convictions facing him. He thinks maybe he should have cracked down a little harder on those guys in the beginning. And now, if you're an Ohio State Buckeyes football player, you're gonna pretty much pay for every mistake that Urban Meyer thinks he made in his entire coaching career. So he could be going a little too far the other way, J-Rock Daddy, but that's what he feels he needs to do to keep his men in check.
Yeah, man. It's rivalry week, baby. You got to do what you got to do, man. I'm excited. You think? I mean, seriously, what's your thoughts here? How competitive do you think the Wolverines can make this, and or do they at all?
Well, it's always a competitive game, as you just said, because their adrenaline is going to be. Now, it all depends how low their self-esteem is after the year that they're having with the athletic director and the coach, and how much slaps in the face they've already taken this year. Has the air came out of their balloon completely? That's what you're going to see this coming weekend when it's Ohio State versus that team up north, J-Rock Daddy, because if these guys have anything, you talk about playing for pride. This is one game that always brings out the pride in a team up north's player versus the Ohio State Buckeyes, man. So
you got that right.
It's going to be hard to say. I don't think they can beat the Buckeyes, J-Rock Daddy, but I do believe that they will have a competitive football game up there, man.
All right, my man. Anything else before I let you go?
Well, just back to this Johnny football story, man. I can't get over the fact that how much negative press we're seeing pointed towards the starting Cleveland Browns quarterback, and saying that I've even seen people facing trying to say that this Manziel situation is manufactured strictly because people don't like Johnny Manziel and they hate him, and that's why this is being brought out now. And they want him to be the starting quarterback for the Cleveland Browns. J-Rock, people don't really necessarily think about what they're saying before they say it, because if you look at the history of Johnny Manziel, which I thought you touched on briefly a little while back in today's show, even when he was at the Peyton or the Manning football camp, when he was at the Manning football camp, there was a situation where he didn't even show up, or a lot of people think he was too intoxicated the night before. And one thing I find strikingly surprising, J-Rock, is the statement that his agent released, where Johnny Manziel said he was accosted and he was not even traveling.
Oh, yeah. It was completely different from what the police reported, and that's where I'm at. I don't want to go any further as far as – because really – until now, once the season started, he's done a good job of staying out of the news, staying out of the headlines. You got to give him credit. I don't want to just – it's like I say with LeBron. I'm not just going to go after the guy for – if you do something, we'll get on it, and if you don't, then we'll get on that too. He did a good job of laying low key, but I will say this. If the bad side – and this is where I want to end it with Manziel. If the bad side of that story turns out to be true – I believe he may never start a game for the Cleveland Browns, because I believe that the Browns, that would be enough where they go, you know what, we may just want to move into a different direction, and that's going. We may not even need to say that. I'm just saying, if the worst case scenario of this story is true, then you may never get a chance to see him in a Browns jersey, because I could see the offseason, his path somewhere else being laid. And I'm just saying, because there's some real douchebag type stuff about sucker punching somebody while security's holding them. That's the part of it that speaks volumes to me. More than no. You can get into a fight on an elevator with an overzealous fan, and that's not his fault. I'm not even saying it's his fault for being out at 2:30 in the morning. I'm just saying it's not a good idea when you're a high-profile person. But if you did something like that, that's different, and that's a whole different thing that we're talking about. So that's what I mean. Let's see where that goes before we go any further with that. But I'm just going to say,